The weather is very strange today. I'm a woman who's obsessed with weather. I have been since I lived in Iceland. As you might imagine, there's not much sunshine there during winter time, so I became obsessed with weather. That's all I used to talk about. Small talk, weather talk, almost all the time. Hello, welcome or welcome back. I am here today to do a short video on books that are not something that I see on the corner of BookTube where I am spending most of my time. Recently, a lot of these videos on the topic of summer hot girl summer reads or sad girl summer reads have been popping up in my feed. I guess this is a trend that every year I see. But this year in particular, I am a bit bothered by this trend. It's just my personal beef with how algorithms condition our own choices in regards to the content that we make on YouTube. Therefore, because we are in a second year of genocide in Gaza and now a new aggression of Israel towards Iran, and I believe this is not the time for hot girl summer reads or sad girl summer reads. I believe this is the time for action. So, nothing against people who make these videos or people who consume them. I also consume them. But I do believe that we need to make videos that cover other topics rather than this romanticization of a life. We need to turn to action. And the books that I'm going to recommend to you today are books that I have had on my TBR for quite some time. I have not read them. Some of them I have read parts of and used them for various projects that I worked on. But most of them I have not read, and they have been on my TBR for quite some time. So this is also a video that will keep me accountable in the sense that I should also get to these books as soon as possible. I do read other books that are in similar topics, in similar direction, but not these ones that I will recommend today. Some of them I do believe I spoke about in previous videos, and I mentioned them briefly or not. And now that I am talking about it, I just forgot one book. Hold on a second. Let me stretch myself for that one. And yes, I think we can start. First book is a historical book. It's A People's History of the Russian Revolution by Niall Faulkner. And the blurb says, the Russian Revolution may well be the most misunderstood event in modern history. Niall Faulkner sets out to debunk the accumulated myths of the last century, showing how a mass movement of millions mobilized for militant action and destroyed a regime of landlords, profiteers, and warmongers. Rejecting caricatures of Lenin and the Bolsheviks as authoritarian instigators of totalitarian dictatorship, Faulkner argues that the revolution was an explosion of democracy and creativity. Laced with first-hand accounts, this history offers a perfect prime for the modern reader. In this moment where we find ourselves and where historic revisionism is rampant, including in my own country, I believe this book is essential. We need to unlearn so much of the nastiness that we have been fed throughout our educational system. We need to critically approach things that have been given to us on a platter in the educational institutions that we are required to attend as children. Therefore, and I can tell you myself that I have been served so many horrible narratives, nationalistic narratives in my childhood that I needed to debunk through my own research outside of these institutions. And reading books like this is actually going to do that. So that's what the blurb at least says. We'll see. Maybe we will have additional criticism towards the author, but that's also a good starting point. Read, reflect, learn, and implement. Next one is on the similar topic. It's Rosa Luxemburg's Socialism or Barbarism. It's selected writings, also by Pluto Press publication. It says, Rosa Luxemburg's writings reveal one of the most brilliant and passionate minds drawn to the revolutionary socialist movement. Through the letters, pamphlets, and theorizing, we see an outstanding social and economic theorist, dedicated political activist, and a devoted confidant. I'm interested in Rosa Luxemburg. I've had this on my shelf for some time, and it is time to pick it up. Next one is a bit of a contemporary topic. I recently purchased this because it was discounted in Mladiska knjigarna in Ljubljana. It's called Disaster, Anarchism, Mutual Aid, and Radical Action by Rhiannon Firth. The blurb says, anarchists have been central in helping communities ravaged by disasters, stepping in when governments wash their hands of the victims, looking at Hurricane Sandy, COVID-19, and social movements that mobilized in their wake. Disaster Anarchy is an inspiring and alarming book about collective solidarity in an increasingly dangerous world. So when we talk about reading and critically approaching the knowledge that we are exposed to, it is also important that we implement it practically. And this book offers a little glimpse into the practical implementation of these values that the anarchist movements espouse to. Next one is also about anarchy, but this time it's Anarchism and the Black Revolution by Lorenzo, Kom'boa, Ervin. And this book I cannot read the whole blurb because there is a sticker, a library sticker at the back. They didn't choose a very wise place to put it. But anyhow, apparently this book was smuggled from prison and it was published. And it says, now amidst a rising tide of Black political organizing, this fundamental classic, written by a legendary activist in the Black liberation struggle, is republished for a new generation. Lorenzo Kom'boa Ervin is an American writer and activist. He's a former member of SNCC, the Black Panther Party, and Concerned Citizens for Justice. Following an attempt to frame him on weapons charges and for threatening the life of a Ku Klux Klan leader, Ervin hijacked a plane to Cuba in February 1969. While in Cuba and later Czechoslovakia, Ervin grew disillusioned with the authoritarianism of state socialism. Captured by the CIA in Eastern Europe, he was extradited to the US, put on trial, and sentenced to life in prison in 1970. He was introduced to anarchism whilst in prison. Released after 15 years, Ervin remains politically active. I guess he's still alive. I didn't check, but I hope he is. Another one on anarchism. This video should be just called Books About Anarchism, but it's not just books about anarchism. Free Women of Spain, Anarchism and the Struggle for the Emancipation of Women. And this is an ethnographic study of the women who took part in the Spanish Civil War. And the blurb says, cowards don't make history, and the women of Mujeres Libres were no cowards. In the midst of the Spanish Revolution, they fought for women's rights within left organizations of their time, while staving off fascism and working towards liberation for all. Concentrating on education, literacy, healthcare, and better working conditions, they mobilized over 20,000 women within the organization Mujeres Libres. This book contains stories of the heady possibilities of revolution and is filled with lessons that will resonate with anyone involved in the social movements of today. It is a call for community, especially amongst women, and it is a call for equality, not after the revolution, but now. The voices of Mujeres Libres have survived over time on the pages of Martha Ackelsbera's inspiring document of their struggle. Another timely book. Moving on to another book on women in the liberation movements. The Zapatista Experience, Rebellion, Resistance, and Autonomy by Jerome Baschet. I'm not sure how this last name is pronounced, or what is the origin of the name. So I'm not really sure how you read the SCH or whether the T is pronounced at the end. Please do forgive, and anyone who knows how this name is pronounced, please, you can address it in the comments. The autonomous rebel territories of Chiapas have helped rescue hope when it seemed all but dead. That's something that we are missing today. These territories are among the most developed and radical of the real utopias that exist in the world today, exceptional in their experiments in self-governance and anti-state politics. The Zapatista Experience orients readers in the Zapatistas' ongoing practice of autonomy and their writings concerning their novel understanding of politics, their analysis of capitalism as a total war against humanity, their conception of indigeneity that built both collectively and individually, and their notion of time and history. Next one, again regarding women in liberation movements and in general, just being badasses. Emma Goldman, Anarchism and Other Essays. In the 1890s and for years thereafter, America reverberated with the name of the notorious anarchist, feminist, revolutionist, and agitator Emma Goldman. A Russian Jewish immigrant at the age of 17, she moved by her own efforts from seamstress in a clothing factory to internationally known radical lecturer, writer, editor, and friend of the oppressed. This book is a collection of her remarkably penetrating essays for In Advance of Their Time, originally published by Mother Earth Press, which she founded. Next one, again, an anarchist, actionist, an anarchist woman, Lucy Parsons, An American Revolutionary by Carolyn Ashbrough. And the blurb says, described by Chicago police as a more dangerous than 1,000 rioters, Lucy Parsons remains one of the most fascinating figures in U.S. history. As a mixed-race woman in Texas, likely born enslaved, Parsons became one of the most militant leaders in the radical labor movement at the turn of the century. Carolyn Ashborough's engaging biography follows Parsons' life and work through pivotal points in U.S. history, from the end of slavery and the era of Reconstruction to the birth of American labor and socialist movement. I've had this book for several years. It was actually gifted to me by a friend, but as I'm a mood reader, I tend to put some books on hold for a longer period than I should, and they're just sitting, collecting dust on my shelves when they should be actually read and reflected upon and engaged more critically in the material that they present and discussed with people who have read it, who have not read it, recommend it to others. But unfortunately, I am much better at buying books, or more like I'm faster at buying books than at reading them. Hence the name of this booktube channel. But I'm trying to correct this. Next one is a more contemporary topic: Bread, Freedom, Social Justice, Workers and the Egyptian Revolution by Anne Alexander and Mostafa Bassiouni. Accounts of the Arab Spring often focus on the role of youth coalitions, the use of social media, and the tactics of the Tahrir Square occupation. This authoritative and original book argues the collective action by organized workers played a fundamental role in the Egyptian revolution, which erupted after years of strikes and social protests. Drawing on the author's decades-long experience of reporting on and researching the Egyptian labor movement, the book provides the first in-depth account of the emergence of independent trade unions and workers' militancy during Mubarak's last years in power, and their destabilizing impact on the post-revolutionary regimes. Several years ago, there was a big scandal because a PhD candidate from Italy was murdered in Egypt. I don't remember what was the final outcome of the investigation regarding his murder, but it is believed, as far as I can remember, because it's been a while since I read those articles, you can actually Google this. It is believed that he was killed by the political military regime in Egypt. We also know that the regime in Egypt is very much complicit in keeping the border to Gaza locked. And this is something I don't think it's spoken of a lot in mainstream circles. Also, this aspect to the Egyptian revolution, I have never seen represented in the mainstream discourse in media or academia. And that's why I'm recommending this book, because this book offers on-ground practical organizing by workers in Egypt, and we can learn from it. No matter the outcome that they had of that revolution in Egypt, we can still learn from it. Next one, and I already mentioned this book in one of the previous videos, and that is Ernesto Che Guevara's Guerrilla Warfare. This book offers practical guidelines. Basically, it covers strategy, tactics, terrain organization of an army, logistics, field medical treatment, intelligence, propaganda, and training, and focuses on 7 golden rules of guerrilla warfare. It's also incredibly important to be aware that this was written under specific context and under specific historical conditions of the time when Che Guevara lived and the revolution that he took part in. And once again, we can approach it critically. We can extract the knowledge that it gives us, and we can use it for our own purposes, in the sense, what was the approach that the revolutionaries in Cuba had when it comes to educating the local population about class struggle and the need for class struggle. This very, very tiny book has a lot to offer. Another one I have mentioned in one of the previous videos that I recorded last year, it's Constellations of Care by Cindy Baruch Milstein, and this is actually edited by her. And it says, what do we do when the state has abandoned us, from failing health systems to housing crisis to escalating ecological collapse? It's increasingly evident that state-centered politics do not protect us from the violence of colonialism and capitalism, fascism, and patriarchy. In fact, they actively work to harm us. There was one book, I think I reviewed it in one of my recent videos. Recent meaning in last 6 to 8 months, that was published. Let me check if it's here. Yes. For those of you who have not seen that video, or if I remember that I think I did review it, this is a very good book which critically analyzes the state, the development of the state, and what state is something you will not learn in school or at university, but you will have to seek out this kind of material outside. And I really do recommend it. This is a spontaneous recommendation on top of all the other ones that I already have here. And yeah, if you're interested to understand why state is oppressive and why it will remain to be oppressive apparatus, then this book is for you. Another book that I wanted to mention, and actually now that we are at it, it's the one book that I read. It's Revolution in Reverse, Essays on Politics, Violence, Art, and Imagination by David Graeber. And in here, David Graeber has one chapter in his first essay where he gives alternative history to the Spanish Civil War, meaning what would have happened if Franco didn't win, but the revolutionary forces won? How would the society be organized in that case? And I really like this exploration of the scenario, of the potential scenario in the historical aspect of particular moments. He gives several options or several versions what could have happened. On to the main list that I prepared for this video. I have two more books for you, and they are in a way connected. One is by Silvia Federici, Revolution at Point Zero, Housework, Reproduction and Feminist Struggle. Blurb says, written between 1975 and 2016, Revolution at Point Zero reflects 4 decades of research and theorizing on the nature of housework, social reproduction, and women's struggles on this terrain, to escape it, to better its conditions, to reconstruct it in ways that provide an alternative to capitalist relations. I have read several books that actually deal with this. One of them, they're more like condensed, shorter versions of this topic. One of them is Lola Olufemi's Disrupting Power. I will just briefly mention some of them. Feminist Theory of Violence by François Verger. And again, by Silvia Federici, Patriarchy of the Wage, Notes on Marx, Gender and Feminism. And final book from the main list is The Feminist Subversion of the Economy, Contributions for Life Against Capital, Amaya Perez Orozco, translated by Liz Mason DC. The blurb says, in the face of unending economic crisis and climate catastrophe, we must consider what does a dignified life look like. Feminist intellectual and activist Amaya Perez Orozco powerfully and provocatively outlines a vision for a web of life sustained collectively with care, mutualism, and imbalance with our ecological world. That vision is a call to action to subvert the foundational order of racial capitalism, colonial violence, and the heteropatriarchal economy that threatens every form of life. In this book, I also found parts, because I've read some parts of it, I didn't read it from cover to cover. I used it for some projects that I took part in previously. And it contains parts that are critical on the welfare state, which I also encountered in the most recent publication by Pluto Press called Pirate Care. I have also discussed that book in one of the previous videos. And this is incredibly important because in the current moment where we see how capitalism is chipping away at the welfare state, we understand that welfare state is just one step towards further liberation. It's not the final goal, it's not the ultimate goal, but it's one step. So it should be protected, but we should go also beyond that. That's it. Those are the books that I recommend that don't fall into the category of sad girl summer, more like into the category of revolutionary women's summer reads for the time of great political upheaval and crisis that we find ourselves. And I really do recommend that you read, join collectives that are close to you, take part in protests, take part in direct actions, join solidarity groups, join mutual aid groups, join anarchist movements, join anything. Just please don't sit idly and watch as the world burns. Thank you. Bye.
Naš boj še zdaleč ni končan. Ta protest